It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
One thing the Celtics have at their disposal is the $11 million remainder of the Gordon Hayward traded player exception. So when we think about the moves that Brad Stevens is going to make this offseason, he's already traded Kemba Walker. He's already hired the head coach. What's left? He's got just about $6 million to spend on the taxpayer mid-level. That's going to be, I don't know, that's going to be a TJ McConnell type. I'm looking at maybe Chris Dunn, as maybe you use that to get your backup point guard or a third point guard, a bigger point guard even, to kind of throw into the backcourt. So in case you need some extra size and Peyton Pritchard isn't cutting it, you've got somebody there. But so that's one element. The other element is all of the traded player exceptions. The one I talked about with Hayward, there's the $5 million Daniel Tice. There's one for $9 million, I think, that was created with Kemba Walker. That's going to last all season long, so you don't have to waste that right now. The Celtics have a hole at the forward spot that they can try to fill. Either maybe Al Horford is a guy that can step into that. I don't particularly think so, but maybe Ime Udoka can find a way to make that work. He did coach Al Horford in Philly. He saw what didn't make that work. Maybe he has some ideas of what will. Otherwise, you got to scan the league and you got to figure out what guys are out there making less than $11 million and fit into this. What team would be willing to let this guy go? What situation is out there that you say, well, a guy leaving for nothing and a team taking back a draft pick, a low draft pick, a second round pick, when does that make sense? How does that make sense? Well, I've settled on JaMychal Green as a potential candidate for that traded player exception. Now he's 6'8". He's a stretch 4. He's 31, so he's a little older. And last season was kind of okay for the Denver Nuggets. Had some really good games, had some not so good games. Shot 40% from 3 and has played good defense in the past, was okay but not great defensively last year. Seems like he can fit a role. So you say, all right, 6'8" guy who shoots threes. Why would the Denver Nuggets let him go? Why would they participate in this? Well, JaMychal Green's salary for this upcoming season is $7.5 million, and it's a player option. And here's where it gets a little tricky. If he likes playing in Denver and that's going to be his market value, then you opt in. You say, hey, I'm going to stick around in Denver. I got Jokic, got Murray coming back. Porter's looking good. I can fill a role here. Depends on what happens otherwise around the fringes. Maybe he has a role. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he doesn't feel like he's getting the right opportunity. Maybe he wants a longer-term deal, and Denver says, we're not going to give it to you. I went to Denver Stiffs, who wrote, Green's offseason is going to be a very interesting one. He might be able to get $7 million per in the open market, but he could just as easily opt into his player option for next season. He just turned 31, and he could be looking for one last multi-year payday in free agency. There are some teams with money available this offseason that could tempt him to look elsewhere. So, there's a lot of ifs, if Denver is not into the long-term deal here, which would be 2-3 years? If he says, all right, well, I'm going to start exploring my options, but the market is still somewhere around $7 to $8 million. If the Celtics can find a way, say, hey, JaMychal, look, you want out of Denver, and you go to Denver and you say, look, I'm going to leave. If you don't, I'm going to opt in and you trade me to Boston for the second round pick. That's option 1 for you guys. If you don't want to do that, then I'm just going to leave for nothing. And I'm going to go somewhere else because I've got a deal on the table with my second choice, pick a team, whatever that is. This could be a situation where Boston says, look, opt in, play the season for us. We're going to, by trading for you, we're trading for your bird rights. And then at the end of the season, when things sort out, the Celtics can maybe re-sign him for another year or two or whatever, however that works out. When you're looking at the imperfect choices around the league, a guy like JaMychal Green suddenly makes a little bit more sense because he could, around Tatum and Brown and, Smart at the point guard and all the other, Robert Williams or Al Horford or whomever, on a good team, which he was on a good team, but a good team that's constructed a little differently with more of its firepower coming on the wings, you have a possibility here of a role. Plus, also, that stretch 4 position is kind of wide open on the Celtics. And maybe Grant Williams can step into that, but he's a little smaller and he can do that off the bench, maybe, or he can be the small ball 5, as we've talked about. But the role is kind of there. It's kind of, if the Celtics are looking for a guy to just step in and, JaMychal Green played 19 minutes, which is perfect. You play him about 20 minutes or so. You can start him. You can have him come off the bench, depending on what you do with Evan Fournier. But using that traded player exception to bring him in, then you flip Tristan Thompson into somebody's cap space or something to clear a little bit of that tax room, so you're not paying $14 million for JaMychal Green, which would be crazy. But situation seems right. You've got the hole, the opportunity in Boston. Hell, maybe he could become a starter in Boston for all we know. Possibly. You've got a team that could lose him for nothing, but if the Celtics say, hey, here's a second round pick, it's all right, fine. We'll take second round picks. Everybody can use a second round pick. Even if you use a second round pick to attach to somebody or a draft and stash, you don't throw those away. But the Celtics will be like, hey, yeah, second round pick for JaMychal Green. We'll do it. Bring him in. A little bit of depth at that 4. Just an idea. You can tell me if I'm crazy at RedsArmy_John on Twitter. But it popped up during my Boston Sports Journal regular Wednesday Q&A session, which I do with subscribers on Boston Sports Journal. I thought it would be a great segment here. Tell me what you think.